Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Wake County's notice to private well users. Unlike customers of community water systems, private well users are responsible for the maintenance and testing of their own water supply. Wake County has launched a campaign to notify private well users about the potential for contamination in their wells, especially in the eastern half of Wake County, because as a public health department, we have an obligation to share information with private well users about issues that may affect their health. On June 24th, we launched this notification campaign by sending mailers to about 15,000 households in the eastern half of Wake County. These mailers contained information about the potential for contamination, and I'm going to share the information that's contained in those mailers with you today and provide you with more information that will help you determine if you are affected and know how to make sure that your water is safe to drink. I'd like to start off with a few take-home messages from this presentation. First, the testing we've done so far indicates that 1 in 5 wells in eastern Wake County may be contaminated. Laboratory testing is the only way to know whether your well is contaminated. It's important to note that if you pay a water bill, your water system is regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act and is being monitored already. It's also important, while these issues can be scary, to remember that these are problems that can be fixed. And it's important to keep checking wakegov.com/wells for more information. We'll be continuing to update that website throughout this campaign to provide well users with tools that they need. So let's talk a little bit about the problem. What we have found from our testing over the past few years is that 1 in 5 private wells in the eastern half of Wake County, in this blue-green shaded area, may have unsafe levels of uranium and related elements due to conditions in the rock underground. Community water systems in this area are already being tested regularly. The problem that we've been finding is high levels of naturally occurring contaminants, uranium, radon, and radium in private wells in this area. Each of these elements has slightly different routes of exposure and different health risks, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. But these are naturally occurring contaminants. The uranium is naturally present in eastern Wake County at higher levels in the rock. That uranium breaks down by radioactive decay into other elements, including radon and radium, and then all of those elements can leach into groundwater and wind up in a private well. So when we talk about health risks, there's a couple of things that's important to understand. Every person is different and responds to contamination differently. So just because you are consuming contaminated water does not mean that you would immediately get sick, and you may not even get sick in the long term. Each person's body will respond differently based on their own body, but also how much water they consume and other health issues that they have going on. It's also important to realize that all water contains a certain amount of contaminants. And so when we talk about health risks, we're talking about contamination above a drinking water standard or above some other health-based guideline. Those drinking water standards and health-based guidelines are set at levels that we could think of as acceptable risk levels, or the dividing line between an acceptable risk level and unacceptable risk level. So just as when you get in your car in the morning to go to work, you're taking certain risk that you might have an accident, most of us have subconsciously gone through a process of assessing whether that is an acceptable risk for us. And we also do certain things to minimize the risk, like wearing our seatbelts, driving a car with airbags, not texting while driving, and things like that. And similarly with well water, we can do things to minimize our risk from contaminated well water. So let's go into the specific health risks and routes of exposure for each of these elements. Uranium is a metallic element that can be dissolved in water. Because it's a metallic element, we're not concerned about uranium entering the body through what you breathe or even absorbing it through your skin. We are primarily concerned with ingestion of water that has high levels of uranium. So that means the water that you drink and the water that you cook with. Drinking water, consuming water with elevated levels of uranium carries two different health risks. In the relatively short term, it can increase your risk of kidney toxicity. This is a condition which the health experts tell us is reversible after the ingestion of uranium stops. And in the longer term, consuming water with high levels of uranium can increase your risk of certain types of cancers. Radium, similar to uranium, is a metallic element. And so again, the route of exposure we're concerned with is ingestion, the water that you drink and the water that you cook with. It's not an issue for skin absorption, it's not an issue for inhalation. Like uranium, radium carries an increased risk of certain cancers if you're consuming water that contains high levels of uranium. Primarily, the cancer risk with radium is bone cancer. Radon, however, is a little bit different animal. Radon is a gas, and so it's going to behave differently once the water containing high levels of radon enters the home. So radon being a gas, as soon as the water enters your home, the radon begins to escape from the water and enters the airspace. So radon is an inhalation risk, but some of the radon also stays in the water and can be an ingestion risk. Over the long term, having well water with high levels of radon causes an increased risk of lung cancer and may cause an increased risk of intestinal cancers. You've probably also heard about radon from realtors. If you've purchased a house in the last 20 years, your realtor might have talked to you about the importance of radon testing. So there's another route that radon can enter your home other than through the well water, but the radon can come into the home through the soil underneath the foundation. So there are two possible avenues for radon to enter the home. We're talking primarily about radon in your well water today, but understanding the radon that may be coming up through the soil is going to be important to understanding how to protect your health the best. So how do you know if you're affected? None of these contaminants can be tasted or seen or smelled in the well water. Water that is perfectly clear and looks very attractive and inviting can be contaminated, and water that's somewhat cloudy, maybe has some iron issues and things like that, may not actually have health issues. So the appearance of the water, the smell of the water, the taste of the water is not a reliable indication of whether the water is contaminated. So we'll talk about a few ways to find out if you are being affected by these issues. First, just a reminder that if you are paying a water bill, that is, if you're supplied by a community water system, whether that is a municipal community water system or a private utility, your water is already being tested in accordance with the Safe Drinking Water Act and operated by certified operators. We've established an interactive online map where you can go and enter your address to find out if you are in the area where we are recommending these tests. That map is available at wakegov.com/wells. You simply enter your address and it will show you whether you're in the affected area or not and give you information about the recommended testing there. But the third and most important way to know whether you're affected is laboratory testing. Laboratory testing by a certified drinking water lab is the only way to know for sure whether your water is contaminated. And that's true not just for these radiological contaminants, but for any contamination that you might be concerned about in your well water. And when you go to get your water tested, in this case, we're talking about a few specific tests that you need to ask for in order to find out if you are being affected by these naturally occurring radiological elements. The specific tests are a test for uranium in water. This is an actual measurement of the amount of uranium dissolved in the water. Another test called gross alpha activity. This is a test that measures certain types of radioactivity coming from the water, and it's an indicator of overall levels of uranium and radium in the water. The third test of your water that you need is a test for radon in water. And finally, in order to make sure that you have a complete picture of your exposure to these elements and that you have the information that you need to respond most effectively, it's also important to test your home's indoor air for radon. So we'll talk a little bit in detail about how you get your well water tested for these tests. Wake County has identified 4 commercial laboratories that are certified drinking water labs that are qualified to perform these tests for radiological elements and that work directly with retail customers like private well users. Those labs are Florida Radiochemistry, National Testing Labs, Pace Analytical, and GEL Laboratories. Wake County has limited capacity to collect water samples and perform testing of private wells, so we are prioritizing our services for lower income residents of Wake County to make sure that our most vulnerable residents have access to these services as well. If we find out about additional laboratories that are available to provide these tests, we'll be adding that information to our website. So let's talk a little bit about how you work with each one of these laboratories, because they each do business slightly differently. So we'll talk about each one in turn. With Florida Radiochemistry, you would need to contact them and ask specifically for the uranium test, gross alpha test, and radon test. Florida Radiochemistry only performs testing for radiological contaminants. So if there are other tests that you want on your well water, such as coliform bacteria, nitrate, or other metals, you would need to hire a different laboratory to get those tests done. Florida Radiochemistry, after they get your request, will ship bottles to you. You follow the instructions with those bottles and then ship them back to the laboratory. And you reach them by phone. National Testing Labs works a little bit differently. They're a little bit more consumer-oriented laboratory. They have created a standard radiological test kit that includes uranium, gross alpha, and radon. So if you contact National Testing Labs, you would want to ask for their standard radiological kit in order to get the tests we're recommending. National Testing Labs also offers other well water tests like coliform bacteria, nitrates, pesticides, and other man-made chemicals. So you can go through National Testing Labs to get other testing done if you'd like. National Testing Labs also ships the bottles to the customer after receiving your order. You then ship those bottles back to them after filling them up. National Testing Labs has a website and they take orders online through that website at watercheck.com. Pace Analytical is a laboratory that has a location in Raleigh, here in Wake County. With Pace Analytical, again, you would need to ask for the specific tests, uranium, gross alpha, and radon. Pace Analytical also offers other well water tests, and they provide their bottles through customers coming out and picking them up from their Raleigh location and then returning those bottles at an appointed date and time back to the Raleigh location. Pace also has field staff at their Raleigh office and for an additional fee can come out and collect the water samples for you. And you can reach Pace through the phone number on the screen or at their website listed there on the screen. The fourth lab is GEL Laboratories out of Columbia, South Carolina. They have created a well water radiological test kit that includes the 3 tests that we're talking about, uranium, gross alpha, and radon. They also offer other well water tests and can perform those services for you if you need it. And like National Testing Labs and Florida Radiochemistry, they will ship the bottles to you after receiving your request, and then you ship those bottles back. GEL Labs actually includes a prepaid FedEx shipping label with their test kits when you order them. And you can order those test kits online at gellaboratories.com. Finally, Wake County, as I mentioned, we have limited capacity to provide sample collection and testing services, so we are prioritizing our sample collection and testing services to serve lower income Wake County residents. If your income for the household is less than 2.5 times the federal poverty guideline, you can get comprehensive testing at very affordable rates. And just for a point of reference, 2.5 times the federal poverty guideline is about $63,000 for a family of 4. We have created forms where you would attest to your family income, have that attestation notarized, and then on the back side of the form indicate that you would like us to come out and collect water samples and give us permission to come on the property to collect those water samples. Those forms are available on our website at wakegov.com/wells. They're also available at our regional centers in Wake Forest, Zebulon, and Fuquay-Varina. The regional centers also have notaries on staff, and they have pre-addressed stamped envelopes there at the regional centers. So you can come in, fill out the form, have it notarized right there on site, and then just drop it in the mail to us with your check. We recognize that through this campaign, we're directing people to commercial laboratories to collect their own water samples for these things. And that may be something that many well users have never done, especially in the case of radiological tests. It's important to make sure that you collect the samples properly in order to get good, reliable test results. So we've created a video to help you see some of the details of proper sample collection and make sure you're getting this right. This video is available at wakegov.com/wells, so you can have it there on your smartphone or your tablet while you're actually collecting your water samples, and use it as a reference to make sure that you get good samples. And we'll watch that video now.
Hi, my name is Brian Wall with Wake County Environmental Services. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If the water at your house comes from a private well, it's your responsibility to test it to see if what's coming out of your tap is safe for you and your family to drink. Not all contaminants are detectable by taste, smell, or appearance. The only way to ensure your drinking water is safe is through testing. The North Carolina Division of Public Health recommends testing for bacteria every year and screening for inorganic contaminants every 2 years. In this video, we'll demonstrate a reliable way to collect a water sample from your well so that you can test it for uranium, radon, and gross alpha and beta particles. In this example, we will use a sample collection kit provided by Pace Analytical, one of the labs that's certified by the state of North Carolina to test for these contaminants. Depending on the lab you use, your kit may vary in size or scope. For instance, you may have more bottles or they may be different sizes. The important thing is to follow the instructions provided by your lab. And remember, the accuracy of testing is only as good as the quality of samples sent in. Let's walk through the process of using this kit.
This kit comes with 4 containers. These 2 smaller containers are for measuring radon. The 2 larger bottles are for measuring uranium and gross alpha and beta. Let's start with the radon test. For this test, our goal is to gather samples with absolutely no air bubbles in them. Let's begin at the kitchen sink. If your faucet has an aerator, remove it. If you are unable to, you can collect the sample from a different tap in your house, from an outdoor spigot, or from the wellhead. If your home has a water treatment system, we recommend that you sample post-treatment so that the water's already run through the system. That way, the testing can give an accurate representation of the water you use to drink, bathe, and cook with on a daily basis. Before collecting the samples, turn on your faucet to cold and allow the water to run 5 to 10 minutes. This will flush your plumbing of stagnant water, which may not reflect the quality of water coming directly from your well. Before collection, reduce the water flow to a slow but steady trickle. The goal is to minimize water disturbance and air bubbles. Tilt the radon vial at an angle to prevent splashing. Collect the water in the vial until it overflows. The water should bulge above the top of the vial, forming what's called a positive meniscus. Next, fill the cap about 1/3 of the way and quickly and firmly secure the cap to the sample container. Now it's time to check for air bubbles. Turn the container upside down and gently tap it against your palm. If you see any air bubbles, remove the cap, top it off, and try again. If there are any air bubbles in your sample, no matter how tiny, the lab will not be able to test your water. It can get a little messy, so be sure to do this step over the sink. And don't worry, you can repeat this process as many times as you need until there are no bubbles in the sample container. Once you're sure you have a good sample, record the date and time on the label provided. Next, place the containers in the plastic bubble wrap and seal tightly. These samples must be shipped to the lab the same day you collect them. Because they're time sensitive, don't collect or ship your samples back to the lab on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or the day before a national holiday. Now let's move on to the uranium, gross alpha, and beta test. The bottles provided by Pace Analytical for this test come sealed with a warning label, because the bottle already contains some nitric acid, which serves as a preservative. Be very careful not to spill this highly corrosive liquid. Not all labs use nitric acid as a preservative. Remember to read all safety instructions that come with your kit. Prepare your faucet in the same way you did for the previous test by allowing cold water to run for 5 to 10 minutes after removing any aerators. If you just did this for the radon test, there's no need to repeat this step. You're already good to go. Next, carefully remove the lid and place the bottle under the faucet. Don't let the water come out too fast. You're looking for a gentle stream of water. Fill the bottle up past the shoulder to the base of the neck of the bottle, being very careful not to allow the bottle to overflow. This ensures the nitric acid does not spill out of the sample. Replace the cap and seal it tightly. Then fill out the labels provided with the date and time and follow the directions on how to return the sample for testing. The important thing is to always follow directions specific to your sampling kit.
Well, that's it. Thank you for following along as we collected samples for radionuclide testing. If you have any questions about the process, where to obtain a sampling kit, or how to know if your water needs testing, please visit us online at wakegov.com/wells or call us at 919-893-WELL.
A few other notes about testing. Once you send in your samples, it can take about 3 weeks to get the test results back. If there are holidays, like the upcoming Labor Day holiday, that may delay your testing, and it's important to make note of any holidays that are coming up before you collect your water samples so that your samples don't wind up stuck in transit because of a holiday that may delay the shipping of the samples. The cost for testing through these commercial labs ranges from about $170 to $250, and there may be additional shipping fees, and if you have someone come out from the laboratory to collect your water samples, there's obviously going to be an additional fee for that service. And at the beginning of this, when we talked about the testing, we talked about the 3 tests for your water, but there's a 4th test of your indoor air that's really important to get. Radon test kits are available at very low cost, $10 to $15 online. And if you go to the State Radon Program's website, ncradon.org, they have a full list of providers of these radon test kits, and you can go online and order them there. It's important to get that radon test of your indoor air because if you have problems with radon in your water, you're going to be confronted with a decision about the most cost-effective way to reduce your overall radon exposure. And sometimes it may mean that you need to fix a problem with the soil underneath your house as opposed to fixing a problem with the water. So having that overall indoor air radon level is very important to making the right decision there. After you get your well water tested, you'll probably have questions about what your test results mean and how to read your lab report. We're going to be adding test interpretation information to our website over the coming weeks, starting with basic information about how to read lab reports from each of these 4 labs, what are the relevant thresholds to understand and compare your results to, and other tools that will help you understand what to do next. We're also holding a series of community meetings beginning August 15th, where residents will be able to bring their test results to these community meetings and hear directly from Wake County well water staff about what their test results mean and what their next steps are. And if you get your water tested and you find that it is contaminated, it's important to remember this problem is fixable. There are multiple options, but the selection of the option is really going to depend on what those test results say. So I can't tell you right now exactly what fix you need to put in place. You'll need your test results. and then you'll need to go through a process of deciding which fix is best based on your test results and your concerns about your family. Unfortunately, because this is a naturally occurring contamination problem, the cost winds up being the owner's responsibility. There's no human responsible party that we can order to pay for fixing these well water problems. And there are no state or federal trust funds established to pay for fixing these types of problems. So fixing it will go back to the owner of the well in terms of the cost. There is some financial assistance available through Wake County's Housing Rehabilitation Program and other nonprofits that perform similar rehabilitation assistance. But the specific program that may be able to provide financial assistance is going to be very dependent on the demographics of the resident, their income situation, age, and things like that. We have reached out to these financial assistance providers to make them aware of this problem and educate them about it. And we're going to be continuing to meet with them and try to determine best ways to get information out to the public about financial assistance options for these issues, and also to provide technical information to the financial assistance programs so that they can better serve Wake County residents who are affected by this issue. So what's next? We recognize that this is just the first phase of a campaign. We're trying to share basic information right now about how to know if you're affected and how to get your well water tested. We're gearing up for a second phase where we'll be providing technical assistance, and we'll be trying to assist the community throughout the process of understanding your test results and moving through to fixing it. So what's next is to keep calm and get your water tested. Remember that our technical assistance meetings will begin August 15th, and we'll be posting the dates and locations of those meetings at wakegov.com/wells. And you can check in on our website for updates, and you can even sign up there to receive an email whenever we update that website and add new information. So I'll leave you with the website again, wakegov.com/wells, which contains all of the information in this presentation, and the special hotline that we've created for this subject, 919-893-WELL. And thank you for your time.